In these turbulent times, an evil and prophetic alliance is forming across the globe. The players include Iran, Russia, and the jihadists with a plan born out of radical Islam. Its goal, says best-selling author Jay Sekulow, is complete world domination. As these radical forces seek to reshape the world, they also want to remove personal liberty and replace it with Sharia law, a strict legal code derived from the Quran and other Muslim writings. Muslims must follow Sharia, as well as all who live in lands controlled by Islam. In his new book, Unholy Alliance, The Agenda Iran, Russia, and Jihadists Share for Conquering the World, Sekulow lays out the ideology and strategy of radical Islam, as well as the path we must take to defeat it.
Well, it's a dynamite book, and Jay's here with us. Jay, how in the world do you find time to write a book when you're doing all these cases?
Yeah, well, this was basically a culmination, Pat, of 3 years worth of research that I did in Oxford. We did these summer programs that the ACLJ sponsors through Oxford Center, and this was the culmination of it. I had the chance to really get into various historians, everything from Disraeli to Churchill to Lawrence of Arabia, to get a real understanding of the formation of the Middle East. And then with the situation with Russia as it's developed and their alliance now with Iran, which is really, as you know, unprecedented, it gave a unique perspective. And I put all this research together and said, here's where they have been, here's now how they're aligning, and if we're not careful, and we're not being careful, this is where it's going to go. And the idea with Unholy Alliance is you look at Iran, you look at Russia, who share no theological underpinning, but are sharing a globalist perspective on getting their message out. I think ultimately they would go after each other. But in the interim, they're trying to destroy the West. And of course, the vacuum in the Middle East has been incredible.
You talked about the end game. What have you discovered from your research, the end game? I was thinking of the senator from Michigan who chaired a Senate committee and jumped all over me because I suggested that this thing isn't just a pure religion. I mean, they make you sound like you're some kind of Islamophobic or something.
Yeah, well, one of the aspects of this book that we get into at great length is the whole issue of Sharia and the application of Islamic law historically, but also today in Europe and in the United States. And that actually came from some conversations you and I have had over the years about this impact of Sharia. It's the export. So what is Iran doing? What are they looking at doing? Iran, as the Islamic Republic of Iran, after the revolution in 79, their desire is to export that revolution throughout the world. So it's a world dominion type of movement, and they want everyone submissive to Sharia. And people want to blow that off, but look in England, where they're having Sharia courts. Look in the United States, where some judges in some domestic disputes have actually looked and say, well, under their religious doctrine and their religious teaching, this is allowable. And of course, it was contrary to U.S. law and contrary to the Constitution.
You know, it's like self-suicide. What is the matter, do you think, with America? Why are we so blind to this threat?
We are so politically correct that we have the paradigm, and I talk about this in the book, upside down. So 2 bombs go off in New York. Now, everybody that's thinking realizes 2 bombs going off in New York City, start with the proposition, this is terrorism, and add to that proposition, it is probably coming from outside influence, in other words, foreign influence. But what do we do in the United States? No. There's been, what did de Blasio call it? An intentional act. Well, no kidding. Of course it was an intentional act. So we've got to turn the paradigm upside down. But Pat, something you've said a lot, something we've talked about, if we don't end the ISIS caliphate, we have a growing phenomenon, and the competition, and the reason the Russians and the Iranians are together is they want to prop up Assad. Sure, they want to harm ISIS. They want to harm ISIS because at the end of the day, Iran wants to be the great caliphate. They don't want the competing Sunni caliphate. They want it to be a Shia caliphate.
Well, you know, the Russians have just moved an aircraft carrier. They've only got one, but they've moved that into Syria. I mean, they've like taken over the country.
Well, they wanted warm water ports. And as you said, their military's been pretty much decimated, but they wanted warm water ports. And that's why they want Assad propped up. So this head fake that they're going to somehow align with us is nonsense. You know, Disraeli famously said that when dealing with Russia, they understand one thing, power. He said, when you have power, you can actually then arbitrate with the Russians. But if you don't have power, you can't arbitrate. So at the end of the day, if you look at the history, which we outlined in the book, and where we are today, we're seeing history. And through their eyes, through the Islamic jihadist mindset, they remember their great Ottoman Empire days. They forget that they lost at the end.
Yeah.
We've got to rewrite that history to remind them of exactly what
We're
happened.
so weak. Nobody fears us because of the fecklessness of the president.
Well, I mean, we abandoned the Middle East. We create this vacuum. The president had this grand idea of what he was going to do for the rest of the world, which ended up being an absolute positive disaster.
Yeah.
And who came in the vacuum? The Russians. They look more like the Soviet Union than they look like the Russians.
Yeah.
And Putin will not respect anything but strength. If we project strength and can back it up with force, that he will be much more respectful. We don't project strength, which we haven't. He fills that vacuum. So Russia's in Syria. Russia's launching planes out of Iran, which violates, by the way, the Iranians' own constitution, letting foreign troops on soil. But they did it. So this alliance between Russia and Iran and then Syria, and our weakness by pulling out is disastrous. We can certainly not have 8 more years of it.
The Speaker of the House yesterday was saying that Secretary Kerry was shilling for the Iranians. Is that the way it is? Yes.
Yeah, Pat, I mean, with the whole situation with the hostages, where first it was $1.7 billion. Now we understand it's tens of billions of dollars. But the Secretary of State asked the media to stop reporting on issues of terrorism. He asked the media, including people like us, to stop reporting on the terrorism. Maybe it won't be so prevalent if the media doesn't report it. What world are they living in? They actually sit and think you could negotiate with the Iranians in good faith when the Iranians have one desire and one desire only, and that is their version of Sharia implicated on the rest of the world.
They want the caliphate. They want the 12th Imam, the Mahdi to come. They want to destroy Israel. They made it clear they want to destroy America.
Of course. And the unusual line, so we put this in there, is for the first time you have a Shia-dominant culture, Iran, funding Sunni Hamas. Why would they fund Sunni Hamas? Only because they think Hamas has got the quicker ability to destroy Israel. Because ultimately the Sunnis and the Shia are going to go after each other. But in the interim, the Iranians, they're smart, will utilize even the Sunni Hamas to try to destroy Israel. We know it's not going to happen, but that's the nature.
In your book, you don't bring any of this prophetic thing that you find in Ezekiel.
I don't get into the prophetic as you have in the past, but I end the book with saying the only hope here, at the end of the day, is the gospel.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to end the book with hope, that people would understand that the gospel is the message of peace, and that if we don't realize that, that is what would change hearts and minds. I mean, you still have to have a strong military, still have to engage, but never lose hope in the fact that we serve the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's on the throne, not the Ayatollah in Iran.
Tremendous book, ladies and gentlemen. It's very well written. It's very tight and easy to read, and it's something that you need to have. It's called The Unholy Alliance between the whispering. There is Putin whispering in the ear of the Ayatollah Rouhani. What about this thing with Koskinen, by the way? You've gone against the IRS.
Oh, yeah. Beat him. You know, we just won in the D.C. Court of Appeals a unanimous decision where the court acknowledged that the IRS was engaged in unconstitutional actions. But I thought the most telling thing about the hearing yesterday was that they admitted that the two people that destroyed the emails of Lois Lerner. So now we know that someone actually did go in and destroy those emails. Their consequences have been nothing. So the IRS, in my view, is institutionally incapable of self-correcting at this point. And we need to be fully cognizant and deal with the fact that the IRS, top to bottom, needs to be cleaned out. This was an agency I worked for right out of law school.
I know.
200 years ago.
You know, the last thing we want to do, though, is a protracted impeachment that goes nowhere. So how do we get rid of these people?
I think you have to do what we did, Pat, actually, and not in a boastful way. Beat them. Beat them in court. Take them to court. Don't let them just roll over you. Beat them. So we went into federal court. First judge gave us a ruling we did not like. We took it to the Court of Appeals, and guess what? 3-0, we win. IRS is completely rebuffed in everything they said. The judge said that one of the judges at the hearing said at the 3-judge panel, why should we believe the IRS? Do you think we should believe the IRS? That's what they asked the Department of Justice lawyer.
Why should we believe
Why should we believe the IRS? And the lawyer tried to hem and haw. But the fact is, their own inspector general said the targeting is ongoing. Pat, I don't think it's done yet. I think they know they can't get caught as easy, but I just got contacted last night about a case that I'm taking for a mutual friend of ours, and it was the same kind of thing. It's clear it was targeting. So we are going to continue to press forward in court. I think the way to deal with it right now with the IRS, especially with an election 47, 48 days away, is beat them in court and don't relent.
Well, Lois Lerner is going to skate free?
Looks like it.
That's horrible.
Looks like. I mean, we sued her, so she's in our lawsuit. She is. But as far as any criminal exposure, this Department of Justice, in the tank, they're not going to do anything.
Unbelievable. Jay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you get this book. This is a good book. It's Unholy Alliance. Where? Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can even go to unholyalliancebook.com.
Unholy
Grab the domain.
UnholyAllianceBook.com. All right. Jay, thank you.
Thank you,
God
Pat.
bless you.